Welcome to the deep dive. You ever have that feeling like some facts you've known your whole life just, well, they don't quite feel right? Today, we're jumping into that, looking at these persistent myths that honestly a lot of us just accept as true, maybe never really questioned them.
That's right. And we've got a great source to guide us, an essay called Debunking 10 Persistent Myths. It's useful because it doesn't just list them.
Right.
It really digs into why they're so common and, what the actual evidence says.
So, our mission today is basically to pull out the key stuff from this essay. Those surprising facts, maybe where these wrong ideas came from.
And what the real story is.
So exactly. Kind of give you the shortcut to understanding why these myths stick around and, well, what the truth actually looks like.
And it matters more than you might think at first glance. The source makes a good point that believing these things isn't just like harmless trivia. It can actually shape things like personal health choices, how we understand history or science, even how we see ourselves.
Absolutely. And let's face it, in today's world, with so much information flying around and plenty of misinformation, having that solid base of critical thinking, looking for the evidence is just crucial. So let's put on our skeptical hats, maybe.
Sounds good. Let's dive in. Where should we start? The essay kicks off with a real classic playground warning, something that probably haunted a few childhoods.
Oh, I definitely heard this one. The myth. If you swallow chewing gum, it stays in your stomach for 7 years.
Yeah.
Just picturing that little lump sitting there.
It's a pretty vivid image, isn't it? And the essay suggests that's probably why it stuck so well. It likely started as, a simple way to scare kids off swallowing it.
A deterrent from parents or teachers, maybe?
Probably. Makes sense.
Which, okay, fine. You're not supposed to swallow gum, but 7 years, that always seemed a bit extreme. What's the real deal?
Well, the reality is much less dramatic.
Yeah.
The gum base itself, it's indigestible. But our digestive system is actually pretty good at handling things it can't break down. Think about, fiber in vegetables. Your body doesn't digest that either.
That's a good point. It just passes through.
Exactly. So the source confirms what, medical experts say. Swallowed gum just travels through your digestive tract pretty much unchanged.
And then
it comes out the other end, usually within a couple of days.
Couple of days versus 7 years. Okay, that's a big difference.
Huge difference.
Has it, ever caused problems for anyone?
The essay does mention that blockages can happen.
Yeah.
But it's really, really rare.
Okay.
Usually only in, very young children who might swallow a whole bunch of gum at once, maybe with other non-food items. But for most people, swallowing one piece by accident, totally harmless.
So if it's so clearly wrong and pretty easy to debunk, why does this 7-year thing have such staying power? What does the source say?
It points to a few things. One, it's super simple and memorable, easy to repeat.
Yeah.
Two, it often comes from people we trust when we're young parents, teachers, authority figures.
Right.
And three, it kind of taps into that slight unease some people have about, unnatural stuff going into our bodies, even though our bodies are perfectly equipped to just pass it right through.
Huh. It plays on a gut feeling, even if the biology doesn't back it up. All right, gum myth. Busted. Okay, speaking of things parents worry about, especially around kids' parties.
Ah, yes. The legendary sugar rush. That deeply, deeply held belief that if you give kids sweets, they will inevitably start bouncing off the walls. Hyperactivity guaranteed.
It really feels like cause and effect, doesn't it? You're at a chaotic birthday party, there's cake, the kids are wild. Seems obvious.
It seems obvious because we see the two things happening together, but this is where the science really pushes back quite strongly.
Oh.
The source highlights tons of studies, including proper double-blind trials that have just consistently found no significant link, no real connection between kids eating sugar and actual changes in their behavior or hyperactivity levels.
No link.
Yeah.
Seriously. So all those times I thought, okay, they just had cake. Here we go.
Well, not according to the research cited in the essay.
Yeah.
What we think is a sugar rush is much more likely down to the situation itself.
Like what?
Like the sheer excitement of a party,
Yeah.
being in a big group of other excited kids, or even just parental expectation.
Wait, parental expectation, how does that work?
The source brings up this fascinating study published in a big medical journal. Basically, some parents were told their kids got sugar, even if they actually got a placebo, a sugar-free substitute.
Okay.
And the parents who thought their kids had sugar consistently rated their behavior as more hyperactive, even if the kid had gotten the placebo. Our beliefs literally colored what they saw.
Wow, that's incredible. So we see what we expect to see.
Pretty much.
So the myth hangs around because it's an easy explanation for energetic kids.
Exactly. It's simple. And the source notes, it also probably ties into, general anxieties about sugar, which, okay, sugar has other health issues. That's valid. But hyperactivity, the evidence just isn't there, despite the myth.
Fascinating. 2 down, and already seeing how much perception shapes things. Okay, let's go from kids' parties to something monumental. Myth number 3, the Great Wall of China is visible from space.
Ah, yes. This one feels like it should be true, doesn't it? It's the only man-made thing you can see from space. Or even the moon. That's the story.
Right, like a symbol of human achievement visible from so far away.
And that powerful image, that symbolism, is a huge reason the myth sticks. But the reality, according to the people who've actually been up there... Astronauts, yeah. They consistently say, no, definitely not visible from the moon. And even from low Earth orbit, it's apparently incredibly difficult to see with the naked eye.
Really? But it's so long. Why isn't it easy to spot?
The essay explains it's actually pretty narrow relative to its length. And crucially, it's often made of materials similar to the surrounding landscape.
So it blends in.
It blends in. It follows the terrain. It just doesn't have enough contrast to stand out easily from that distance.
Huh. So if you can't easily see the Great Wall, what can astronauts see?
Well, according to the source, things that contrast more sharply. Big cities lit up at night. Apparently, those are very obvious.
Okay.
Large airports, big highways, things with distinct shapes and colors against the background. Those are much easier to spot from orbit.
So where did this idea even come from then, if astronauts say no?
The essay suggests it might go way back maybe to speculation in the 1800s, long before anyone could actually check.
Before space travel, yeah.
Right. And then it just keep repeated. Maybe in early reports about space, textbooks, the media. It just makes for such a great, compelling story. Sometimes those are hard to shake, even when they're wrong.
A good story trumps the boring truth sometimes, I guess. All right. Myth 4. Let's bring it back down to earth, to our own bodies. Shaving hair makes it grow back thicker and darker.
Oh, this is a classic. Everyone's heard this, right? Especially when you're younger, figuring out shaving. The fear is you shave off fine, light hair, and it comes back like a wire brush or something. Darker, thicker.
It definitely affects how people approach shaving, for sure.
Absolutely. But the source explains that what's really happening isn't the hair changing its nature. It's about how you cut it.
How so?
When you shave, you slice the hair shaft right at the skin surface. Flat across.
Creates a blunt end.
Exactly, a blunt tip. So as that hair starts to grow out, that blunt end just feels coarser or stubblier when you touch it, compared to the natural tapered end of an uncut hair.
Okay, that makes sense. And the darker part.
Well, that newly cut blunt end hasn't been exposed to sun or anything yet, so it might look a little darker right at the skin surface, just briefly. But the hair itself hasn't fundamentally changed.
So the root, the follicle, that's unaffected.
Totally unaffected. The essay cites multiple studies, even going back to the 1920s, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah, research back then already showed shaving doesn't change the hair follicle, which is what actually determines thickness, color, and growth rate. Shaving just cuts what's already there.
100-year-old myth still kicking. Why does it stick so stubbornly?
Well, that feeling, the tactile difference of the stubble, that's a big part of it. It tricks us. The visual thing may be seeming darker for a bit. And the essay also suggests it gets tied up in cultural ideas about, hairiness, masculinity, femininity.
Right, sensory experience and cultural ideas overriding the biology. Okay, let's switch gears from the physical to the mental. Myth number 5, and this is one I think a lot of us want to believe. We only use 10% of our brains.
Ah, yes. This one's so seductive, isn't it? The idea that there's this vast, untapped 90% of potential just sitting there.
Yeah.
Waiting.
It fuels so much. Motivational speakers, movies like Limitless. This idea you could be so much more.
It really offers that hope, doesn't it? But the reality, according to, basically all of modern neuroscience, is that we use pretty much all of our brain.
All of it, like constantly.
Maybe not every single neuron firing at the exact same instant, but over the course of a normal day, pretty much every area has a job and gets active doing various things. There aren't these huge dormant sections just waiting.
So those brain scans, like fMRIs, they show activity all over.
Exactly. The source confirms this, citing medical experts and explaining how neuroimaging shows widespread activity, Even simple tasks light up multiple brain regions.
And I guess the fact that damage to even a small brain area can cause major problems kind of supports that too.
That's a really good point the essay makes. If 90% was just sitting idle, then damaging a small part shouldn't have such significant effects. But it often does, which tells us all those parts are pretty important.
So where did this 10% idea even start? It's so widespread.
The source isn't totally sure, but speculates it might have come from like a misinterpretation of early brain research, or maybe twisting something psychologists like William James said about reaching our potential and turning it into a literal percentage.
And we cling to it because it feels hopeful. That idea of unlocking hidden powers.
That seems to be a big part of its appeal. Yeah. It taps into that desire for self-improvement, for hidden abilities. And maybe, the essay suggests, it also just reflects a common misunderstanding of how complex and active the brain really is, even when we're not consciously trying.
Makes sense. Okay, from the brain's mysteries to a historical figure who looms large. Well, maybe not literally. Myth number 6. Napoleon Bonaparte was super short.
Right. The image is almost cartoonish, isn't it? This tiny, maybe angry guy. It even gave us the term Napoleon complex.
Yeah, for someone trying to overcompensate for being small, but was he actually that short?
Well, according to the essay, which looks at historical records,
Sweet.
no, he was about 5'7" tall.
5'7". And was that considered short back then?
Actually, no. The source says that was pretty much average height for a Frenchman in his era.
Average. Okay, so how on earth did he get this reputation for being tiny?
There are a couple of interesting potential reasons mentioned in the source. One is kind of technical and measurement mix-up. The French inch, the pulse, was apparently slightly longer than the British inch. So if his height was measured in French units and then maybe converted incorrectly or just compared directly by the British.
He'd seem shorter by their standards.
Exactly. A simple conversion, confusion.
Okay, that's one factor. What else?
The other big one, propaganda. Pure and simple.
Ah, the British again.
Yep, they were his enemies, right? So British cartoonists and writers deliberately depicted him as much smaller than he was. It was a way to mock him, belittle him, make him seem less imposing.
Wow. So it was a conscious effort to, well, cut him down to size.
Pretty much. And the essay uses this as a great example of how propaganda and cultural stories can really stick. They shape how we remember history, creating these images that last for centuries, even if they're not really accurate.
That's quite sobering, the power of misinformation over time. Okay, next up, let's move to the animal kingdom. Something a bit smaller. Myth number 7. Goldfish have a 3-second memory.
Oh yeah, this one's everywhere. The go-to comparison for being forgetful, you just picture them swimming around the bowl, turn, and instant reset. Whoop, new lap.
It just sort of feels right for a creature that seems so simple, you know, stuck in a little bowl.
And that feeling, that expectation of simplicity, is probably why the myth is so persistent. But the science, it tells a completely different story. The source cites research showing goldfish are actually way smarter than we give them credit for.
Really? Like how? Smarter than 3 seconds, surely.
Oh, way smarter. Studies show they can remember information for months, not seconds. Months. They can learn surprisingly complex tasks, like navigating mazes to find food. They can be trained to respond to specific signals, like lights or sounds. And they remember that training for a long time. Some research even suggests they can recognize their owners.
Recognizing owners, navigating mazes. Okay, that shatters the 3-second myth completely.
Absolutely. Their memory and learning abilities are, much more sophisticated than the myth suggests.
So why do we keep saying it then? Just easier to think they're simple.
The essay suggests that's likely it. It fits our preconceived notion of a small, simple animal. Yeah. And it serves as a handy metaphor for human forgetfulness. But it does make a broader point, too.
Which is?
That underestimating animal intelligence just because it works differently than ours, well, it limits how we appreciate the incredible variety of minds out there in the natural world.
That's a really good point. It's more about our assumptions than their abilities. Okay, let's swing back to health. Myth number 8. The flu shot can give you the flu.
Right, and this one is really important because it directly impacts public health. If people believe this, they might skip getting vaccinated.
Yeah, you hear it constantly. I got the flu shot last year, and then I got sick right after. The shot gave me the flu.
And that timing, that perceived connection, it feels convincing. But the science is really, really clear on this. The essay explains, citing health authorities, that flu vaccines use either inactivated, basically dead virus particles, or sometimes just specific proteins from the virus.
Meaning they can't actually cause an infection.
Exactly. They cannot cause influenza. It's biologically impossible for the vaccine itself to give you the flu.
Okay, so if someone does feel crummy after getting the shot, what's actually going on?
Well, the source clarifies that it's pretty common to have mild side effects, like maybe your arm is sore where you got the shot,
Sure.
or you might feel a bit achy, maybe have a low-grade fever for a day or so. But these aren't the flu. These are signs your immune system is kicking into gear.
It's the body responding to the vaccine, building protection.
Precisely. It's your immune system learning what the flu virus looks like so it can fight it off later. It's the response, not the illness itself.
So the myth comes from maybe getting the shot during flu season when bugs are already around?
That's likely a big part of it. People would get vaccinated when flu is circulating, so if they happen to catch an actual cold or even the flu around the same time, it's easy to mistakenly blame the shot. Or, like you said, just misunderstanding what that immune response feels like. The key thing is, the shot is safe and effective at preventing serious illness.
A really important distinction. Okay, moving on to another health-related myth, one you probably hear people nagging each other about. Myth number 9. Cracking your knuckles causes arthritis.
Ah, the classic. Stop doing that, you'll get arthritis. That popping sound.
Yeah.
It just sounds like you must be doing damage, right?
It really does. It sounds like bones grinding or something breaking. And if someone finds the habit annoying, it's easy to believe it must be bad for you.
Totally. The sound is unsettling. And yeah, linking a socially disliked habit to a scary health outcome like arthritis, it seems plausible. But the essay, referencing medical research, is very clear. There's just no scientific evidence linking knuckle cracking to arthritis.
None. Like studies have looked and found nothing.
Exactly. Research has consistently failed to find any connection. That popping sound, it's not bones or cartilage damage. The essay explains it's actually caused by gas bubbles.
Gas bubbles? Seriously?
Yeah. Tiny bubbles of gas, mostly nitrogen, forming and collapsing rapidly in the synovial fluid, the stuff that lubricates your joints when you stretch or bend the joint quickly.
Wow. That's not what I pictured at all.
Right. It's just physics happening inside the joint.
Yeah.
Now, the source does mention that maybe, possibly, very chronic, forceful cracking might lead to temporary things like minor swelling or slightly reduced grip strength for some people over many years.
And not arthritis.
But not arthritis. The risk doesn't seem to increase.
So the myth survives because the sound itself feels damaging, and maybe we like to think annoying habits have bad consequences. Perception again.
Pretty much sums it up. Associating that sound with damage, maybe a bit of wishful thinking if you find the sound irritating, keeps the myth alive.
All right, final myth for today, number 10. Bats are blind.
Blind as a bat.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the most common idioms we have involving animals.
Yeah.
And, bats fly at night. They famously use echolocation, bouncing sound off things to navigate. So it seems logical, right? They must be blind if they need to use sound like that.
That's the assumption, yeah. If they need sonar, their eyes must not work.
Makes intuitive sense. But the truth is, bats are absolutely not blind. The essay confirms this, citing biology resources. They have perfectly functional eyes. They can see.
They can see, even while they're flying around in the dark using echolocation.
Yep. For many bat species, vision and echolocation work together. Echolocation is amazing for navigating in total darkness and pinpointing tiny insects, sure. But lots of bats use their sight too. And some species actually have really good low-light vision, maybe even better than ours.
So echolocation is like an extra sense, not a replacement for sight.
Exactly. And the essay points out some bats, especially the big fruit bats, have excellent vision. They rely on it a lot, can see in color, and can see perfectly well in daylight too.
Wow. It just shows how easily we can misunderstand an animal's abilities if they're different from ours, doesn't it?
It really does. Echolocation is so unique and impressive, people just jump to the conclusion that it must mean they can't see. Another case of oversimplification leading to a persistent myth.
Okay, so we've journeyed through quite a bit today. Gum, sugar, the Great Wall, shaving, brains, Napoleon, goldfish, flea shots, knuckles, and bats.
And looking at them all together, you really see these common threads, don't you? How easily things get started, how culture or just, psychological biases help them stick around, how history gets twisted.
And critically, how these myths aren't just isolated bits of trivia. The source really emphasizes their broader impact. They can genuinely influence your choices about health, your understanding of science, even how you view other people or animals.
Absolutely. The essay really hammers home that point. In this age of rapid information, and let's be honest, disinformation, what people sometimes call fake news. Critical thinking isn't just a nice skill to have.
It's essential.
It's essential. It's about having the mental tools to pause and question claims, even the ones everyone seems to repeat.
Yeah, learning how to check sources, figuring out why a certain idea might be appealing even if it's wrong, and just appreciating that reality is often, well, messier and more complex than a neat little myth.
And that's why digging into this stuff matters to you. Listening right now, understanding these myths and why they persist, it really empowers you. It helps you see the world a bit more clearly, make better decisions based on actual evidence, not just, stuff you've always heard.
It's that reminder that just because something feels right or it's what you were always told doesn't automatically make it true.
Exactly. Which brings us towards the end of this deep dive. We've peeled back the layers on 10 myths that are surprisingly hard to shake off.
And the main takeaway, really echoing the source material, is just how crucial that evidence-based understanding is. And also, being aware of how much our beliefs are shaped by things like culture, psychology, history, all that stuff.
So here's a little something for you to think about as you go about your day.
Yeah.
Consider a fact you've heard recently, or maybe something you've always just accepted, that maybe pinged your skepticism just a little bit.
Yeah, anything that made you go, really?
Take a moment, maybe right now, maybe later today, just do a quick search. Check a couple reliable sources. Put that critical thinking muscle to work, just for a minute.
See what you find.
And hey, if you discover the truth is different, share it. Gently challenge misconceptions when you hear them. Encourage others to be curious too.
Because, as the source suggests at the end, critical thinking isn't just for academics. It's kind of a shared responsibility, isn't it? Let's all try to empower ourselves and each other with curiosity, with knowledge, and, yeah, with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Well said. And hey, if there are other myths you've always wondered about, let us know. This deep dive into understanding our world, it's definitely ongoing.